The fluorescent lights of the emergency room buzzed overhead as I clutched my throbbing shoulder. My Aunt Karen's shrill voice carried through the waiting room. "Tommy's just being dramatic again. You know how Michael likes to roughhouse with the kids. I'm Tommy Mitchell, 23, and this was the 12th time my uncle had accidentally hurt me. Only this time, something was different. The nurse looking at my chart wasn't nodding along with my family's excuses. Fourth shoulder dislocation in 3 years, Nurse Santos muttered, her dark eyes narrowing as she scrolled through my medical history. Always during family gatherings, always involving the same uncle. My mother shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Boys will be boys," she said with that nervous laugh I'd grown to hate. "Michael just doesn't know his own strength sometimes." The pain shot through my shoulder as I remembered how it happened. Another mandatory Sunday family dinner, another round of Uncle Michael's wrestling practice. I had tried to decline, but he grabbed me anyway, twisting my arm behind my back while everyone watched and laughed. "Come on, Tommy boy. Show your old uncle what you've got." He had taunted, knowing full well I couldn't break his grip. The sickening pop of my shoulder echoed through the dining room, followed by my scream. "Mr. Mitchell," Nurse Santos addressed me directly, ignoring my mother's attempts to interject. "Would you like to speak with me privately?" Before anyone could object, she pulled the privacy curtain around my bed, creating a barrier between me and my family's watchful eyes. "Listen carefully," she said softly, pretending to examine my shoulder. "I've been an ER nurse for 15 years. This isn't rawhousing. It's systematic abuse. Your medical history shows a pattern that started when you were 8 years old." My throat tightened. Nobody had ever called it what it was before. "The first record is a broken wrist," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then multiple sprains, bruised ribs, another dislocated shoulder. Always explained away as sports injuries or accidents, but always happening when your uncle was present." Tears stung my eyes as years of suppressed memories surfaced. Uncle Michael, Dad's older brother, the family's golden boy. Successful businessman, generous donor to local charities, beloved by everyone, except the kids he played with. "I'm not the only one, am I?" I asked, finally voicing the suspicion I carried for years. Nurse Santos shook her head. "Your cousin Danny was in here last month. Similar injuries, similar excuses. He's only 13. My stomach churned. Danny, my Aunt Patricia's son, had started avoiding family gatherings recently, just like I had at his age. "We need to stop him," I whispered, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "But my family, they'll never believe." "They don't have to," she interrupted, pulling out her phone. "We have something they can't ignore. Documentation. Years of medical records showing a clear pattern. And now this." She played a video from the hospital's security camera showing my arrival. There was Uncle Michael gripping my injured arm, forcing me to walk faster. His face showed not concern, but anger. The mask of concern only appearing when hospital staff approached. "Standard procedure for suspected abuse cases," she explained. "We record everything, including his aggressive behavior in the parking lot." A knock on the curtain made me jump. "Tommy?" It was my cousin Sarah, Michael's daughter. "Dad's getting impatient. He says to hurry up so we can all go home." Nurse Santos raised an eyebrow at me. In that moment, I thought of Danny, of all the other kids at our family gatherings who flinched when Uncle Michael came near. "I'd like to file a report," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "And I need to call Danny's parents." The nurse nodded, already reaching for the hospital phone. "I'll contact our patient advocate and the police. You won't have to do this alone." Outside the curtain, I could hear Uncle Michael's booming voice. "This is ridiculous. We're family. Tommy, stop wasting everyone's time." But for the first time, his voice didn't fill me with fear. Instead, I felt something new, determination. The curtain that separated us was thin, but it represented something powerful. A boundary, a shield, a line he couldn't cross anymore. Nurse Santos placed a reassuring hand on my good shoulder. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is tell the truth, even when our family doesn't want to hear it. As she made the calls that would change everything, I closed my eyes and thought of Danny. "Hang on, kid," I whispered. "Help is finally coming." The next few hours would shatter our family's carefully maintained facade, but sometimes things need to break before they can heal properly, just like a dislocated shoulder. The hospital room became a storm center of activity. Detective Rivera arrived within 30 minutes, her presence sending Uncle Michael into a rage that only confirmed everyone's suspicions. "This is absurd," he shouted, pacing the waiting room. "We're talking about family roughhousing. Since when is that a crime?" But his protests were drowned out by the arrival of Aunt Patricia with Danny. The moment my young cousin saw me in the hospital bed, something broke inside him. He burst into tears and ran to Nurse Santos, clinging to her like a lifeline. "Danny, what are you doing?" Aunt Patricia looked bewildered, but I could see the dawning realization in her eyes as her son refused to let go of the nurse. "Mrs. Cooper," Detective Rivera addressed Danny's mother, "your son's medical records show 17 emergency room visits in the past 2 years, all coinciding with family gatherings where your brother-in-law was present." The color drained from Aunt Patricia's face. She stumbled into a chair, looking at Danny as if seeing him for the first time. "But Michael said, he told me Danny was just accident-prone." "Show her," I said to Nurse Santos. "Show her the pattern." The nurse pulled up both our medical histories on her tablet. 2 timelines, running parallel, showing the same story. Injuries, excuses, more injuries. Always when Uncle Michael was around, always explained away as accidents or rough play. "Oh God," Aunt Patricia whispered, reaching for her son. "Danny, baby, why didn't you tell me?" "He said you wouldn't believe me," Danny sobbed. "He said nobody would believe me because he's Uncle Michael and everyone loves Uncle Michael." The detective's notepad filled with statements. More family members arrived, drawn by urgent phone calls and text messages. Uncle Michael's wife, Aunt Susan, stood frozen in the corner, her face a mask of denial even as the evidence mounted. My mother tried to approach me, but Nurse Santos blocked her path. "Your son needs space right now," she said firmly. "And you need to decide whose side you're really on." Sarah, Michael's daughter, slipped into the room during the chaos. She was 19, and I suddenly remembered how she'd stopped bringing friends to family gatherings years ago. "Tommy," she said quietly, "I need to tell them about the lake house." My heart stopped. The lake house, Uncle Michael's pride and joy, where he took the kids for special bonding weekends. Detective Rivera's head snapped up. "What about the lake house?" Sarah's voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. "There are others. Kids from the church, from his business partners' families. He'd invite them for weekends, say he was mentoring them." The room fell silent. Uncle Michael lunged forward, but 2 police officers who had arrived earlier caught him. "Sarah, shut your mouth," he snarled, showing his true face at last. "No, Dad," she replied, straightening her spine. "I'm done being quiet." Detective Rivera quickly called for additional units and a search warrant for the lake house. Uncle Michael was handcuffed and led away, screaming about family loyalty and ungrateful children. Aunt Susan finally broke her silence, not to defend her husband, but to collapse into tears. "I should have known," she kept repeating. "I should have seen it." Danny had calmed down enough to give a statement, holding tightly to his mother's hand. Aunt Patricia looked shell-shocked but determined, already talking to Detective Rivera about pressing charges. Sarah sat beside my hospital bed, both of us watching the family we knew crumble and a new truth emerge. "It's over," she whispered. "It's finally over." Nurse Santos brought us all water and arranged for a crisis counselor to come speak with the family. She'd stayed past her shift, refusing to leave until she knew we were all safe. "You've probably heard this before," she told me, checking my shoulder one last time, "but this isn't your fault. None of it was your fault." Looking around the room at my cousins, at the mothers finally facing the truth, at the police officers taking statements and collecting evidence, I felt something shift inside me. The shame and fear that had lived in my chest for so long began to dissolve. Detective Rivera approached with some final questions. "The lake house investigation will be extensive," she warned. "We'll need all of you to be strong a little longer." Sarah squeezed my hand. "We're stronger together," she said. "No more secrets." Through the hospital window, I could see Uncle Michael being placed in a police car. The family's golden boy, finally revealed for what he really was. It hadn't taken much. Just one nurse who refused to look away, one medical history that told the true story, and one moment of courage that sparked a chain reaction of truth. Danny came over and carefully hugged me with one arm, mindful of my injured shoulder. "Are we going to be okay?" he asked, looking at the strength gathering in that hospital room. The protective fury of awakened mothers, the professional dedication of Nurse Santos and Detective Rivera, the unshakable bond forming between the cousins who had survived. I knew the answer. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "We're going to be okay." 1 year later, I stood in the courthouse corridor, adjusting my tie with hands that no longer shook. The trial was finally ending, and Uncle Michael's plea deal would ensure he spent at least 20 years in prison. The investigation of the lake house had revealed exactly what Sarah feared: dozens of victims spanning 15 years. "Ready?" Sarah appeared beside me, looking strong in her navy blazer. She'd become the family's backbone during this year, organizing support groups and helping Detective Rivera reach out to other victims. "As I'll ever be," I replied, rolling my shoulder, now fully healed thanks to proper physical therapy. "Is Danny here?" She nodded toward the bench where Danny sat with Aunt Patricia. At 14, he'd grown taller, but more importantly, he'd grown confident. The weekly therapy sessions and martial arts classes had helped him find his voice. "Tommy," he waved, showing off his new green belt. "Did you see? 5 more families came forward this morning." The news spread through our group like a ripple. More victims had found courage in our story. More parents had finally listened to their children. Uncle Michael's web of influence had unraveled completely. Nurse Santos, Maria, as she insisted we call her now, approached with her usual quiet strength. She testified as an expert witness, explaining how she'd identified the pattern of abuse in my medical records. Her testimony had inspired other healthcare workers to come forward with their own documented concerns about Uncle Michael. "The DA says it's a slam dunk," she informed us. "Between the medical records, the lake house evidence, and all the witness testimonies, he's never getting out." My mother appeared at the courthouse entrance, hesitating before approaching our group. The past year had aged her, but also stripped away her denial. After months of therapy and painful self-reflection, she'd finally become the mother I needed. "I brought sandwiches," she said softly. "I thought, after the sentencing, we could have a picnic in the park, as a family." Sarah smiled warmly. "That sounds perfect, Aunt Linda." Our family had transformed. Aunt Susan, after divorcing Uncle Michael, had thrown herself into child advocacy work. Aunt Patricia started a support group for parents of abuse survivors. The weekly family dinners continued, but now they were genuine celebrations of healing and growth. "All rise," the bailiff's voice echoed from the courtroom. We filed in together, a united front. Uncle Michael sat at the defendant's table, diminished in his orange jumpsuit. He refused to look at us, but we stared straight at him, unafraid. The judge's sentencing was clear and firm: 25 years without possibility of parole, registration as a sex offender, and no contact with minors for life. As the gavel fell, I felt tears on my cheeks, not of pain or fear, but of relief. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered for statements. Sarah, now studying journalism with a focus on investigative reporting, handled them expertly. "This isn't just about our family," she told the cameras. "It's about breaking the silence that protects abusers. It's about believing children when they tell us they're hurting." Danny showed off his green belt to the reporters, proudly explaining how martial arts had helped him recover his confidence. Aunt Patricia beamed beside him, her protective arm around his shoulders. Maria joined us for the picnic, bringing her famous empanadas. As we spread blankets in the park, I marveled at how much had changed since that night in the emergency room. "I got accepted to nursing school," I announced, unpacking the sandwiches. "Starting next fall." The news was met with cheers and hugs. My mother wiped away tears. "You'll be amazing," Maria said. "You already know the most important part: how to listen and believe." Sarah shared her own news. Her investigative piece on family abuse cover-ups was being published in a major magazine. Danny proudly announced his role as peer counselor at his school's new abuse prevention program. As the afternoon sun warmed us, I watched my rebuilt family sharing food and hope. The wounds hadn't disappeared, but they'd healed into something stronger. We'd learned to protect each other, to speak up, to trust our voices. "Hey, Tommy," Danny called, tossing me his martial arts belt. "Want to learn some moves?" The good kind of moves. I caught the belt, remembering how different this was from Uncle Michael's wrestling. "Show me," I said, standing up. As Danny demonstrated proper stance and respect-based sparring, I saw our future unfolding. A future where family meant safety, where strength meant protection, where love didn't hurt. Maria watched us with satisfaction, probably remembering that night she pulled the curtain closed and helped me find my voice. One nurse, one moment of attention, one refusal to accept the usual excuses. It had sparked a revolution of truth in our family. Sometimes, she said, sharing her empanadas, healing others helps us heal ourselves. Looking around at my family, scared but stronger, wounded but wiser, I knew she was right. We had transformed our pain into purpose, our fear into force for change. The sun set on our picnic, but our story's light would keep spreading, helping others find their way out of darkness. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to listen, one voice willing to speak, one truth willing to be told.